Headlines globally. My name is Saza Munga and Michael Maithia is our sign language interpreter. Remember to talk to us via social media platforms Switch TV KE and Saza_M on Twitter, Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Instagram. 111 is our SMS number. Be sure to send in your views and comments. Let's begin. We begin on a sad note where at least 3 people have been killed and 33 others injured in a twin suicide bombing in Uganda's capital, Kampala. Police say the latest is a string of terrorist attacks over the past month. Shilangetich reports.
On 25th October 2021, terrorists used an explosive device on a coach traveling on the Kampala to Masaka Road near Mpingi, killing 1 person. On 23rd October 2021, terrorists used yet another explosive device to attack a restaurant in Kamamboga, a suburb in the northeast of Kampala, killing 1 person and injuring a number of others. And in just the span of 3 weeks from the last 2 explosions, today 2 explosions have gone off in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, with the first explosion going off at City Square and minutes later, another one exploding at the Parliament Avenue, hitting the Jubilee Insurance building that also houses the Inspector General of Government Office near a police station. Just after these explosions, people were left scampering to leave the city, many on passenger motorcycles. Police and army personnel cordoned off streets around the blast site as several ambulances were deployed. Images on social media showed several people lying on streets near the entrance of Central Police Station and Kampala's High Court. However, Health Ministry spokesperson Aimbiona Emmanuel, through a tweet, indicated that 24 people are being treated and 4 are in critical condition. At Parliamentary Avenue, where the second explosion occurred, all streets have been cordoned off by security, with legislators and parliamentary staff evacuated. Forensic investigators arrived at the Parliamentary Avenue as security operatives continued to comb the scene for any pieces of evidence into the explosion. Earlier, the UK government had updated its Uganda travel advisory to say extremists are very likely to try to carry out attacks in this East African country. The Allied Democratic Forces, an affiliate of the Islamic States group in Central Africa, had claimed responsibility for the attack on the previous explosions. Shilangetich, Switch TV.
What a sad time for the people of Uganda. This is the 3rd explosion in the last 1 month. Let's keep praying for Uganda as investigations are underway. Now, moving forward, bar owners in the Uganda want the government to fully reopen the economy for them to make up for the pandemic-induced losses during the festive season. In December, Uganda's government looks to keep COVID-19 infection rates low by compelling bars and other retail establishments to remain closed until vaccination rates increase across the country.
In Uganda's capital, Kampala, Darius Mugisa, the owner of the Asylum Bar and Lounge, laments that his bar has been closed for nearly 2 years due to the pandemic, much like many other retail establishments in the region.
In March, we went into a lockdown. From then on, we've been closed. So it's been hard.
The Ugandan government says it will fully reopen the economy in January next year, but entrepreneurs like Mugisa say this could be too late as they hope to cash in on the upcoming festive season.
It's unfortunate that he couldn't let us, come back slowly in December. He would have put a few, restrictions like observing SOPs and all that, so that in December we start slowly, because Ugandans naturally go out in December.
Ugandan restaurants are currently allowed to operate across the country, but bars are remain closed. To keep the business afloat, Mugisa has decided to transform one of its sections into a restaurant. Bar owners want the government to allow them to reopen their doors and practice the recommended WHO guidelines, such as washing hands frequently with soap, wearing of masks, and social distancing. However, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni insists the reopening bars before January may not happen until at least 12 million people are vaccinated.
All these must be fully vaccinated by the end of December, so that we open schools and the rest of the economy by January. It is now possible to do this. Resume full throttle activities of life and economy with rational safety.
As Uganda tries to control the spread of the epidemic by increasing vaccinations, a number of restricted businesses will struggle for income as their doors remain closed, including the over 150 bar owners in the Kampala metropolitan area. Reporting for Switch TV, I'm Lincoln Wumbogo.
And in other news, former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's graft trial resumed today with his ex-spin doctor due to the witness stand. However, the defense has asked the highly anticipated testimony to be delayed.
Benjamin Netanyahu, now opposition leader in parliament after his ouster by a broad coalition of rivals in June, arrived at the Jerusalem courthouse without a large security contingent and a crowd of rivals protesters that were in hand when he appeared as premier. He has been charged with bribery, fraud and breach of trust in 3 separate indictments that collectively accuse him of accepting improper gifts and illegally trading regulatory favors with media moguls in exchange of positive coverage. The testimony of his former spokesman Nir Hefetz was expected to shed light on the ex-premier's dealings with Bezeq Telecommunications Group. In the Bezeq case, considered the most serious case, Netanyahu is accused of offering regulatory benefits that could be worth millions to the company in return of politically advantageous coverage to the group's Walla news site. Netanyahu's lawyers have argued that they are unprepared to respond to Hefetz's testimony following recent weeks' press revelations about the evidence he might share. The prosecution has said while in regrets with recent leaks about Hefetz's expected evidence, his testimony should go ahead. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Brian Munda.
Now, American journalist Danny Fenster says he's healthy and happy to be home after he was freed from prison in Myanmar and flew to Qatar, following negotiations between former U.S. diplomat Bill Richardson and the ruling military junta. Apollo James with more.
Fenster, 37 years old, the managing editor of independent online magazine Frontier Myanmar, looked frail 3 days after he was sentenced to 11 years in prison for incitement and violations of laws on immigration and unlawful assembly. He has been in detention since May. Myanmar's military-owned Medawi TV said Fenster had been granted an amnesty following requests from Richardson and 2 Japanese representatives to maintain the friendship between the countries and to emphasize humanitarian grounds. Fenster was among dozens of media workers detained in Myanmar since February 1st coup that led to an outpouring of public anger over the military abrupt end to a decade of tentative steps towards democracy. Myanmar military has accused many media outlets of incitement and spreading false information. A source familiar with Richardson's trip to pick up Fenster said it was arranged without the knowledge of State Department or the U.S. Embassy in Yangon. Officials had initially opposed Richardson's visit to Myanmar earlier this month and urged him not to raise the case with Myanmar's official. And before his release, some State Department officials were concerned that Richardson's involvement could delay his release by leaving the junta to see Americans as an asset to try to extract concessions. U.S. Department spokesperson Ned Price said that the former government was not acting at the direction of U.S. government in Myanmar, but officials had been in regular contact with Richardson and his team. U.S. officials, including Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs Rogers Carstens, also worked on getting the journalist released. Apollo James, Switch Television.
Thank you, Apollo James. Now, outgoing Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte filed his certificate of candidacy for the senator in the May 2022 elections, with the constitution limiting Philippine presidents to be single 6-year term. Duterte, who was elected in 2016, has his term ending on the June 30th, 2022. The next elections are scheduled to be held on the 9th of May 2022. Last month, Duterte said that he was retiring from politics and will not run in the next elections in obedience to the will of the people. Duterte's long-term aide turned Senator Christopher Goh has declared his bid for the run for president in the next elections. Now, China currently has 13 new COVID-19 vaccines entering phase 3 clinical trials, making it one of the leading countries in the world in terms of COVID-19 vaccine, even as the country suffers a resurgence in COVID-19 infections. Damaris Nyambura with more.
China has been delivering vaccines to the public since December last year, with over 2.38 billion doses administered so far. The doses have been proven safe and effective, and the country has shared more than 1.7 billion doses with the international community. As it forges ahead in developing new types of vaccines to step up the anti-pandemic fight.
A total of 13 COVID-19 vaccines have entered phase 3 of clinical trials in China, while 4 have been granted conditional marketing. 3 have been given green light for emergency use, making China one of the leading countries in vaccination.
Zhang says in curbing the highly infectious Delta variant, mass vaccination remains the key to quell the recent resurgences, and seniors should take the jabs, especially that they are exposed to a higher health risk in comparison with the younger people.
For senior people aged over 65, 75 and 85, their chance of catching the coronavirus and developing into a serious condition is 5 times, 7 times, and 9 times of younger people. It also comes with a 90, 220, and 570 times risk of fatality. We say that for seniors, unless they are allergic to the doses or are in an acute exacerbation of some diseases, otherwise they can all take the jabs.
China has been one of the most successful countries in taming the outbreaks. Just as the raging pandemic claimed more than 5.09 million lives across the world, official data shows that China has seen no COVID-19 deaths since late January. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Damaris Nyambura.
Time to take that short breather now. Remember, keep it Switch TV. Don't change that dial. Welcome back to the bulletin. If you've just joined us, my name is Saza Munga and on sign language is Michael Maidya. Now, Russia has deployed special operation troops to the northern border of Belarus to contain the surges of migrants to the area, which is straining neighboring NATO countries' ability to respond. John Kutun narrates.
The two former Soviet militaries have functioned with great interoperability in recent years as the fate of embattled Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko becomes increasingly tied to Russian President Putin's grip on his own country's government. The EU has accused Belarus of mounting a hybrid attack on it by flying in thousands of migrants, mainly from the Middle East, and pushing them to try to cross illegally into Poland. The Kremlin has denied any Russian role in the crisis, but Putin offered to help resolve it on Sunday. Ukraine has said there are nearly 100,000 Russian soldiers near its borders, and the United States has issued warnings of a possible Russian aggression. Thousands of migrants are stranded in sub-zero temperatures on the forested border between Belarus and Poland, with new doubting the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko deliberately stoked the crisis to enrage the European Union. Poland and other EU members have accused Belarus of encouraging people to cross the Polish border in revenge for Western sanctions on Minsk over a disputed August 2020 election, which gave long-term President Lukashenko a sixth term and sparked mass anti-government protests. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Joan Kutun.
Thank you, John Kutun. Now, idle cargo containers and truck shortages across the U.S. have jointly caused a backlog in the country's port as the world's largest economy is undergoing a supply chain crisis. Piles of the containers are waiting to be transported at the port of Savannah, the second largest container port on the East Coast, as trucks are lining up outside the harbor to handle as much as 80,000 containers. Lincoln Wambugu with more.
In order to alleviate the current port congestion and cargo detention problems, the Port of Savannah has been operating around the clock in the middle of last month. Despite operating at full capacity, the port continues to see containers remain idly stocked rather than moved to make way for new containers which have been stranded on cargo ships awaiting further instructions. The current ship congestion problem in the Port of Savannah has been greatly eased compared to last month, and the number of ships waiting in the port has been reduced by nearly 40% compared to the previous peak period, according to Griff Lynch, the director of Georgia Port Authority.
We're working at capacity right now, not because we ran out of capacity, but the containers are staying here a lot longer than planned.
Although the officials say that the waiting time for ships is eased, the daily ship reception capacity can only be maintained in single digits. With the approach of the public holiday season, more cargo ships are arriving and increasing the congestion pressure at the port. In order to send the empty containers out in time, the Port of Savannah has been urging customers to ship them away as soon as possible, while plans are developing to add 8 container yards around the port.
There are, as has been well documented by the American Truck Association, there are about 80,000 trucks short in the United States of America, which we're all being impacted by.
However, the problem of a shortage of transportation vehicles is another problem that needs to be addressed. Lincoln Wambugu, Switch TV News.
Now, Russia has showcased a series of new multi-role helicopter gunships at the ongoing 17th Dubai Air Show in a bid to seek cooperation with UAE partners. Among the helicopters developed by the joint stock company, Russian helicopters are the MiL-Mi-28, KMOV KA-52 and KAMOV KA-226T, which were exhibited outside Russia for the first time. The Mi-28, known as Night Hunter, is an all-weather helicopter capable of conducting operations at night and during adverse weather conditions. The KA-52 can perform aerial reconnaissance to defend against surface attacks while being capable of destroying ground targets, such as tanks.
2 weeks ago it was the first flight of this modernized helicopter, and we bring it today because we see that this is a good opportunity for future cooperation.
A Japanese clothing firm is using a pioneering method to recycle polyester clothes, turning old garments into new ones in a bid to reduce non-ecological waste. Polyester is one of the most non-environmentally friendly materials used to make clothing, as it is a synthetic fiber that is not biodegradable and it requires fossil fuels to manufacture.
Brink was launched in Tokyo's Commercial and Finance Center Shibuya last month to help stop the cycle of waste polyester. Products including t-shirts, hoodies and tote bags sold at the retail shop are all made from scraps of clothing. Using the firm's proprietary technology, old polyester clothes are treated, then either turned into new clothes or into bolts of fabric that other companies can purchase to make sustainable products.
Clothes sold by others can be turned into new clothes, so that even people who don't like second-hand clothes may be willing to buy them.
Consumers say it's a good choice for those who don't like second-hand clothes but who still want to buy environmental-friendly products. The company uses recycling stations set up at the retail shops to collect polyester fabric scraps or clothes. The firm's unique fiber regeneration technology can greatly reduce petroleum consumption during polyester fiber production, cutting more than 60% of carbon emissions compared to traditional garment industry. Meanwhile, clothing companies are increasingly buying Brink's new regenerative fabric to produce their own clothes, the firm says.
Currently, few textiles are recycled in Japan compared with the total waste, but the number of enterprises setting up textile recycling stations or buying our cloth raw materials is increasing year by year.
So far, Brink has collected 3,000 tons of used clothing under the project, equivalent to 15 million t-shirts. Lemayan Kefaletina for Switch TV.
Moving over to China, where the General Speed Railway from Xi'an to Yan'an in northwest China's Shanxi province launched a railway e-card service allowing passengers to take the train by scanning a QR code at any station where the train stops without the need to purchase advance tickets. David Kagina with more.
The Railway e-card is a new generation of real-name electronic card products issued by the ticket booking platform. Passengers log in to the 12306 mobile client, enter the Railway e-card interface, fill in the requested information online, compare the second-generation resident ID card, and submit the application.
For example, the price of a second-class seat from Xi'an to Yan'an is 86 yuan. We need to ensure the account balance is at least 86 yuan. QR code to enter to tick. Click to generate a dynamic QR code to enter the station, check the ticket, board the train, and leave the station, which realizes a smooth journey using a QR code on the cell phone.
The ticketless service has been put into use on some domestic high-speed rail lines before, but it is the first time to be put into use on a normal speed railway in China. All Chinese citizens between the ages of 16 and 70 can apply with a valid second-generation resident identity card information. The system will deduct the fee after passengers swipe the QR code twice, once when entering the gate and a second time upon exiting the gate. If the ticket is not used for any reason, there is no procedural fee for a refund. At present, the railway e-card service can be used for the Seahead train running between Xi'an and Yan'an. With a QR code, passengers can take any number of Xi'an EMUs anytime and anywhere, and seats will be automatically allocated by the system.
Now, to a sigh of relief, Kabul International Airport in Afghanistan has largely resumed normal operations 3 months after the Taliban took over the country. Now, this is according to the Chinese reporter on the ground. The airport even provides fast-track services for passengers in need. Inbound and outbound flights at Kabul Airport are operated by Afghan domestic airlines. At present, there are still no direct business commercial flights to Afghanistan operated by international airlines. Now, many Afghans are returning to their homeland, showing their confidence in the country's reconstruction and development. Brazil's Rio de Janeiro held its first marathon since the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic nearly 2 years ago. The two-day event in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's third most populous state, included a full marathon and a half marathon, attracting more than 20,000 runners. It marked a milestone in the return of the sporting events involving large crowds of participants to the Latin American nation since the pandemic began. A total of 20,114 runners joined the event, of whom 101 were from abroad. According to the marathon organizers, all registered runners were required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 before November 1st. Otherwise, negative results or nucleic acid tests were taken within 48 hours were needed. Now matters COVID-19. The cumulative total of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the United States increased to over 47.2 million on Monday, with the death toll surpassing 764,000, according to data released by the Center for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. Brian Mwenda with more.
As the cold days set in, the United States is seeing again a surge in COVID-19 cases, though deaths and hospitalization trend lower, while the federal government's vaccine mandate consistently face legal challenges and sectoral resistance. On Monday, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, updated that 226,607,653 people had received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, making up to 68.3% of the whole U.S. population. Fully vaccinated people stood at 195,120,470, accounting for 58.8% of the total population. A total of 29,338,966 people, or 15% of the fully vaccinated group, has received booster shots. U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy warned on Sunday during an appearance on Fox News that parts of the country with colder temperatures will see a resurgence in coronavirus this year if vaccination do not increase. The COVID-19 pandemic has left many in hunger due to the impact on the economy. According to non-profit organization Feeding America, about 60 million Americans have difficulty in getting enough food and can only rely on charity organizations for free food. The Feeding America has unveiled a hidden but long-existing fact that thousands of military families are struggling with hunger amidst the pandemic. Coordinating the work of more than 200 food banks around the country, Feeding America estimated that 29% of the soldiers in junior enlisted ranks face food insecurity with their lower payment in the past year. And as many as 160,000 military members in service are having trouble feeding their families. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Brian Mwenda.
Well, that's a wrap from me. My name is Saza Munga, and on sign language was Michael Maidya. Remember our SMS number 111 Switch TV KE on Twitter, Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Instagram. Send in your views and comments. See you next week.